Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sales Management Summit meeting. My name is Sandra, and I will be moderating today's call. Our speaker today is Jon Dunkelberger, Director Major Accounts, Dealer Division, Ricoh USA, presenting My Accidental Discoveries. We will turn to the presentation in just a moment, but first I want to go over the web conference instructions. Everyone is currently in mute so that the background noise does not become distracting for the other participants. To view today's presentation, as the screens change live, you may go to the link that was sent to you in your reminder email. Once in there, you may click anywhere on the page. Everyone see the pop-up with the option to make a comment? Feel free to ask questions by clicking on any slide, and we'll make sure all of your questions are answered. For the newer participants in the group, it might be useful to review some of the main benefits you can take advantage of as a member at no additional charge. First are the live monthly web conference meetings, which you've already dialed into today. I hope you find these useful, and we have an excellent lineup, which you can see by going to our website's schedule page. Second, we do record all of these, so if you are traveling or stuck in another meeting, simply log in at your leisure and the full archives of past meetings are available to you with a number of interesting topics. Third, get to know the other members. By logging in, you can see all of their profiles, and we are glad to make any introductions if wished. Fourth, if you are wrestling with any key issues or decisions, we strongly encourage you to reach out to the other members. Also, our site makes it very easy to post questions. The seniority and experience of your fellow members makes this the best possible forum to get advice from others who have probably dealt with the same issues and can give you sound advice on what worked and what did not. Fifth, we really encourage site visits. If you've not visited others' offices to have a great discussion on best practices and see their facilities, please do so. You can log in to see the other members' companies and cities, so feel free to reach out or, as mentioned, we are happy to make introductions. Sixth, we also generate executive summaries of meetings, including the key takeaways and learning nuggets so that you can reference them and put them right into action. Seventh, our members are very busy, so we started a service where we pick out the top 6 most interesting articles among thousands at hundreds of sites to keep you abreast and ensure you don't miss the key ones. Lastly is our Book of the Month summary that you can either read or listen to as you commute. Each month we will be selecting the most interesting book, then summarizing the ideas so within minutes you can absorb the key takeaways. There are many other benefits, of course, but I just wanted to highlight some and keep a lookout in your inbox for a number of these each month. That takes care of the housekeeping items. If you'll just give me a few moments to now pull up the speaker's presentation and introduce him. Okay, all set. Now, before I turn the call over, I would like to tell you a little bit about our speaker today. Jon Dunkelberger is Director Major Accounts for the Dealer Division of Ricoh USA. He has spent 20 years with Ricoh spread across dealer sales, direct sales, and various corporate functions. For the past 6 years, he has been a member of the Ricoh Dealer Division headquarters team working on sales strategy and major initiatives. Jon lives in Downingtown, Pennsylvania with his wife Linda and Reese, their rescue pup. They have twin sons that have, quote, divided their house. Dylan's a mechanical engineering major at Clemson University, and Jacob's a chemical engineering major at the University of South Carolina. Jon, thank you so much for being with us today. Just say next when you wish the slides to advance, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Sandra, and thank you for the introduction. My last name is really Smith, but it's fun to give a name like Dunkelberger for introductions and see the introducer struggle with it. So, Sandra, it actually is Dunkelberger, and sorry for such a tongue twister. Let me first thank you for giving me the chance to present to you today, and thanks to Shelly for talking me into it. This was about a year in the making in the communication between us, and I'm really happy to share with you today. Before I tell you a bit more about myself and tie it into the actual presentation, I'd like to introduce you to my company, Ricoh, which I'm very proud of. I'm very proud of Ricoh. The text on the page that you see in front of you, and Shelly, or Sandra, you can go to that first page. Thank you. The text you see in front of you here is pulled from 2 recent press releases that Ricoh did. In short, we empower digital workplaces, enabling individuals to work smarter. I'll give you a little more background on that in the next slide. Most would say that we're a sustainability-minded technology leader, but being a bit of a contrarian that I am, I really like to consider us a technology-minded sustainability leader. So when I shared these two pieces with you on the slide, one basically the overall of Ricoh, and then the other a recent announcement that we've made on sustainability and our focus to ecology. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so a little bit more about me, my industry, and my team. First, my industry. I work in my industry because I enjoy our basic purpose of helping our customers to improve their business processes. I'll cover a little more about that for you when we go on in the presentation. Secondly, my team. I love working with our independent Ricoh Family Group dealers because they're dedicated entrepreneurs who have a very positive impact on their employees and their communities. And third, just to share a little bit about my inspiration. Believe it or not, I started my career in finance, and I can still remember telling my favorite CFO, and it really was my favorite CFO. I'll have to send him a recording of the presentation and tell him that I didn't forget him. But I told my favorite CFO that I wanted to move to the sales organization. And I looked at him, and he was giving me that same look that my mother gave me when she caught me sneaking down the street to hang out with the cool kids. You may know that look. It's not one that you want to get. And now later in my career, I'm really banking on David Epstein's theory that he puts forth in the book that I'm going to tell you about in just a minute. And the theory is that generalists, and I consider myself a generalist, can triumph in a specialized world. Now, that does take me to my first of four. I'll give you 4 literary recommendations for today. This book is called Range by David Epstein. It's also available in Kindle, and I'm going to tell you a little more about it as we go on with a couple of the discoveries that I want to share with you. So with that, if we can go to the next slide, please. All right, my accidental discoveries. For a couple of weeks, I toyed around with the theme and title for this presentation. Right? What's my theme? What's my title? What's my theme? What's my title? It just happened to be at the same time that I attended a number of graduations. It was in graduation season, high school graduation, college graduations, and with that, I got to hear some excellent convention speakers, and also a couple convention speakers that were not so excellent, but really tried hard. They were all the presentations, these convention speeches, were all about the speaker's lessons for the graduates. So I figured, you know what, I got it. I'm going to give you a presentation with lessons. That's where I was going to go. Then as I started to pull the presentation together, I figured out that I really had a problem with that approach. What I've got for you today is not so much grandiose as a lesson, and I won't presume to teach you a lesson about how to run a sales organization. Right? Many of you have done, I'm assuming some of you have done it longer and at a higher level and better than I have. So as I really thought about the things that I wanted to cover, I realized that what I have for you today are things that I discovered for myself pretty much by accident. They're all really pretty basic and obvious once you discover them. Until you discover them, they're not so, but once you do, they're pretty obvious and basic. So if part of your feedback is, hey, John, pretty obvious and basic, I absolutely agree with you. Now, if just one of them triggers a small positive change for you, then we've had a really good hour together. And I've got 9 of them that I'm going to share with you. Next slide, please. The first 4 are people related. your people, the people in your sales organization. Or if we want to get fancy with it, we can call it organizational development. In any discussions that I'm going to have about a successful sales organization, I always start with the people. Again, very obvious, but it's something that's worth pointing out. My 4 people-based discoveries are related to defining the roles in the sales organization, the roles of your sales professionals, recruiting your sales professionals, the process for hiring them, the process for developing them, and the process for developing them into successful sellers and leaders. Next slide, please. Okay. Number 1, create an excellent job description. I've learned the hard way that you cannot skimp on this step. You have to define. You have to define roles, jobs, positions very well, and the tool generally used, the tool that I start with, is the job description. If you are creating, relaunching, revitalizing, or hiring, or just managing a sales professional position in your organization, I strongly believe, I implore you, have a truly excellent job description for them. And I put excellent all in caps because, yes, I am yelling it at you. You want to take that job description. You want to think about every sentence in it. You really want to commit to it. And I mean really commit to it. If you do this right, then everything else you do in the organizational development becomes a bit easier. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it becomes a bit easier. If you cut corners with the job description, everything else is, or if you fail to use it, you're going to float around aimlessly on every important decision related to the position. Certainly for recruiting, interviewing, hiring, training, and developing, each of my person-related discoveries that I'm going to share with you ties back to this excellent job description. Where it'll really kill you is with your performance management and your compensation planning. Those can be 2 of the trickiest and most challenging area to deal with in sales management. And if you don't have this job description set with responsibilities and expected outcomes, if you're not describing the person that you want to work with, the person that you really believe can kill it in the role, then you're really going to have difficulty with those more complex areas of your management, your performance management and your compensation planning. All right, next slide. On to discovery number 2. All right, discovery number 2 is related to recruiting. As a business leader, I take responsibility for my recruiting. And I implore you as a business leader, take responsibility for your recruiting. Now, you can have a recruiter that helps you. You can have a whole recruiting organization. I do at Ricoh, recruiting organization, and I have a team of recruiters and one specific recruiter who is excellent, who I spend most of my time working with when it comes to recruiting. Bob McIntyre, there's a shout out for you. But as the business leader, I really believe that I have to take the true responsibility for that recruiting. I have to ask my team for help recruiting. All right, the best source of referrals for employees to hire into your team is going to be your team. Also, build a network. Right? I'm a LinkedIn user. I'm a believer in LinkedIn and other networking capabilities. Build a personal network and ask that personal network for help in your recruiting. I warned you about this. Use the excellent job description to sell that position to your contacts. All right? I think that's an important step. if I want my contacts, my network, to be excited about the position that I have available, if I want them to be excited about giving me referrals, quality referrals for that position, I have to do a little selling. That job description can be an excellent tool for it. Excellent tool or tool. Excellent tool for that process. And then the last thing, and you probably heard this, and again, obvious, John, but do it all the time, regardless of whether you're fully staffed or not. I found some of my best recruits and developed the relationship with them the right way when I was fully staffed. All right, next slide, please. Sandra, I did not roll to number 3 on the PowerPoint yet.
You might need to refresh your page. You try that and see.
All right. Yes. Okay. It was just me. Everybody else can relax. All right. Number 3 in the process is the hiring. Right? This is another obvious but game-changing realization for me. The hiring process is a sales process. If I'm looking at a candidate for a sales position, the candidate is selling him or herself in a sales process. That candidate is selling him or herself in a sales process. All that I've got to do with that hiring process is create a process that lets him or her either succeed at it or fail at it. And either is fine. I mean, that's part of the process. That's part of it for them. It's part of it for me. But I need to present that process, that sales process for them where they have the ability to either succeed or fail at it. The picture I've got there is an obstacle course. I make it a little bit like a selling obstacle course. And very frankly, I make it a really easy obstacle course for them to traverse. I spend multiple sessions with the candidate telling him or her about our organization and the position. Guess what? Again, I use my really excellent job description. Then I have the candidate do a presentation on how they're going to do the job. I have them present their plan, if you will. Now, I can tweak the process a little bit here and there. I can have them do a dry run with me and then a formal presentation to a panel. That's one of the versions of this process that I use quite a bit. And we're totally transparent in the preparation process. That candidate can access anyone in my organization they want to. They can ask me any question they want to in preparation in the preparation of the presentation and in preparing to actually present it. And I'll even coach them if they ask for it. All right? Totally, when I say totally transparent, I mean very much so. On the page, you'll see just a really informal version of the way that I then look at them in this process. And if you think about a sales process and you think about critiquing sales professionals, it can be on the same type of thing. How well did they research? But not only how well did they research, was there a level of curiosity that will make them a good sales professional for me? What was their preparation process? One of the first questions I'll ask them during their presentation is, what was your process for preparing? What was their excitement level? Were they coachable? As I said, I'll even give them coaching and preparing if they ask for it. How about presentation skills? Were they resourceful? What was the quality of interaction that they had with me or the panel in doing the presentation? A little one there I put in quotes because it's one of my own. Are they a student of the sales process? Right? We're asking them to be practitioners, to be sales professionals. Are they a student of how to do that? I'll give you a couple hints a little later on how I look at that. What's their follow-up? In my little example here, I even gave a 1. I've had people that look like tremendous candidates who didn't do the basics of follow-up. And I could therefore have no trust in how they would do that as a sales professional. And then one that's important to me. Does it seem like they're going to have fun? When I introduce this process to the candidate, I tell them that I expect them to have fun with it. And then I sit back and watch to see whether they do it or not. Again, if you think back to that job description, I want to hire the people that I'm going to want to work with, that I'm going to enjoy working with, that my team will enjoy working with, my customers, my dealers. So what is their attitude and fun level in going through this process? All right, next slide, please. All right, now I've recruited, I've hired, I have to develop. All right, my tagline here is that as a sales leader, I have to own the results of the training, and I have to at least co-own the development and the delivery of training. All right, my title there at the top, the business has to own it. And by business, I mean myself in the sales organization as a business leader. I have to co-own it with my training organization. Co-own the training, I have to completely own the responsibility for the coaching. And incidentally, I believe there's a big difference between training and coaching. I give you my motto on the page. There's lots of them out there. If you just Google difference between training and coaching, you see all kinds of inspiration and wisdom and so forth. I give you mine on the page. And it's simple and easy to remember, and it's a good thing for me to remind myself of once in a while. Training's pouring into them, and coaching is having them pour out. Again, I use the excellent job description when in doubt on how I want to train or coach someone or the principles that I want to use in developing training with my training partner. I go back to that job description. For my team, we've even taken it so far as having the sales organization co-deliver sales training with the training organization. Now, my talent development manager, Mike Naris, has welcomed this involvement and collaboration from me. And I have to give Mike a good plug here because I'm going to have him listen to this recording and critique me, and I really, really want to give him I want him to give me a good score. Mike and I currently have a major account sales training that we're delivering in the field, delivering to our dealers. That training is called Steps Advanced, and it's co-delivered by a talent development coordinator who is on Mike's team and a major account consultant that is on my team. Co-delivered, co-owned, co-delivered. And they both own the results of that training. They own how it's received by the sales professionals, how it's utilized by the sales professionals, and what they execute based on that training. Now, last quick point on the training. And you'll see here, as promised, I am revisiting this book by Epstein, Range. If you go with this book recommendation and give it a look, make a note, see what he says about the wicked, and that's in quotes, wicked, W-I-C-K-E-D, world, when it comes to developing your people. I wish this book was available to me 20 years ago. I wish it was available for parenting, frankly. And I wish it was available for what I do in the development of people. I think there's some tremendous lessons in there, and I especially like this idea of a wicked world. Our sales professionals operate in a wicked world. And it might not be the meaning you're looking at. I mean, it's not Wizard of Oz and the witch and so forth. Epstein's got a specific definition for it. I really encourage you to take a look at it. All right, next page, please. Now, we've recruited, hired our people. We had them, they understand this excellent job description they put in front of them. We've got ways to develop them in place, right? Now what we need them to do is be successful sales professionals. We need them to sell. We need to give them a sales process. a solid, repeatable, predictable sales process. As Sandra read in my introduction, I've had, along with my sales responsibilities and my little bit of a start in the finance organization, I've had some corporate responsibility around project management, process improvement. I served as a Six Sigma black belt at one point inside of my company, and have had quite a training and background in process improvement. I enjoy it very much as a tool. So as I approach this, I do it from a very pragmatic way, having managed, led, been responsible for sales professionals, but also with that process improvement, process development hat on that comes from the technical approach that I learned in some of those other roles. So my next accidental discoveries about the B2B sales process are related to that sales process: prospecting, differentiating, solutioning, if you allow me to make up a word, solutioning, and by now it probably is in the dictionary, I see it so much, but solutioning, justifying, right, getting the customer to say yes, helping to justify that purchase for them, and then finally understanding that my customer's decision-making process. All right, next slide, please. All right, at the start of the sales process, it's very common for us in this prospecting step to tell our sales professionals to go find something in common with their customer decision maker or influencer. Go find something in common with them. But what we often forget to tell them is that to find something in common, they have to have something. Right? My good chance that my customer decision maker or influencer has interests, business interests, personal interests, community interests, right? But if my sales professional doesn't have interests of that sort, how can they find something in common? So the first piece of advice I give around this prospecting step, very simple, 2 words: do something. Do something interesting or meaningful or fun or whatever it is. Next question I get back is, well, what do you mean, John? What do I do? So I put together this little list that I share with you on the slide. Do something professional, like join an association. Do something in your community, like serve on a board. Do something in a social cause, any of them, like volunteering. Do something in the academic community. Take a class or mentor a student or teach a class. And then personal activities. You see a couple of mine, believe it or not. Yoga or art class, train and run a 5K, get into a book club, and share all Jon Dunkelberger's book recommendations. So, I footnoted here. This is not guaranteeing you 100% hit rate. I tell the sales professionals, do this, but I won't guarantee you 100% hit rate. But I will guarantee that if they do it, they'll be better for it. So there's no risk here. To find something in common, you have to do something. All right, next slide, please. Discovery number 2 for me in the sales process is the power of differentiating. Again, I warned you at the beginning, very obvious, I get it. Differentiating, wow, John, it's obvious. It is obvious, but it's amazing how much I see people struggle with it. It's amazing how much I see sales professionals don't have a process for differentiating. They don't have a philosophy around differentiating. They don't celebrate what differentiates them. So not a lot of words on this slide. I'm going to go right through them with you. Celebrate what differentiates you. Get your salespeople your sales professionals into the mode of celebrating what differentiates them. What's their philosophy? around working with their customers and what differentiates them. What are their core values from a selling or a business standpoint? What's their process? What's their sales process? And why should that be a good thing for their customer? What do their customers say about them? That's a differentiator. And overall, why should any of this matter to their customer? Now, here's my second literary recommendation. Book is called Sales Differentiation. I put each of them down in the corner so they're easy to remember. Sales Differentiation. It's written by a guy named Lee Sauls, and he steps through a methodology for differentiating. It's a very good one. It's one that can apply to any business, and I really recommend it to you. All right, if we can move on to number 3. All right, so my made-up word, and maybe in the question and answer at the end, somebody can tell me whether it's actually made it into Wikipedia and the dictionary and so forth, but solutioning, right? So I take solution and make a verb out of it. In my business, and I'm sure for many of yours, you sell solutions. A solution, it's an overused word, I get it. And some of you are probably rolling your eyes, solution, oh my God, everybody uses the term all the time. And I do, I'll admit it, I use it all the time, but I use a very simple definition for it. A solution solves a business problem or challenge. A solution solves a business problem or challenge. And that's a direct quote from my next literary recommendation, incidentally. I didn't come up with that. In fact, I didn't come up with, as I warned you, I didn't come up with anything in this presentation today. I just discovered it. It was right there. I kind of discovered it by accident. So a solution solves a business problem or challenge. At the root of many business problems and challenges, there's a business process. There's basic business processes that are function-based, like operations, sales, marketing, IT, legal, etc. And there's more advanced processes that cross functions. And this is the area that I'd really like to operate. Project management, change management, policy and governance. Right? They are generally owned by a certain function inside of the company, but they cross functions. A lot of important problem solving happens in those disciplines of project management, change management, policy and governance. I want my sales professionals to understand those processes. I want them to be a student of those business processes. And now I'm going to steal from the author of this next literary recommendation. The gentleman is Keith Eads. He's the author of the book that I recommend to you here called The New Solution Selling. And Keith uses the term situational fluency. And I love the term. I find it's very descriptive. It's very obvious, but it's very descriptive. Situational fluency. We want our sales professionals to have situational fluency. And if they say in turn, okay, how do I do that, John? I tell them 2 things. One is I tell them to read a book about a business process. All right, see, I'm glad this organization has a book club for as many times as I'm mentioning books. I tell them to read a book. But then more importantly, I tell them to go ask someone for help to understand that business process. I implore my sales reps to interact with our finance, our operations organization, our HR organization. Right? The way that I learn these processes, the way that I got my interest in processes and my love for them is I just hung out with people that were great at those processes. Finance or sales or operations processes like billing and order management and supply chain, marketing, IT, legal. I tell them they have to go to people and ask for help to understand the business process. Right? And again, in closing on this slide, Keith Eads, the book is called The New Solution Selling. And the term that I very blatantly stole from him today, or borrowed from him today for this presentation, I hope you'll like it and use it if you haven't already, is situational fluency for our sales professionals. All right, next slide, please. Now, we're progressing through the sales process. Our sales professional has proposed to the, or is preparing to propose something to the customer. And inevitably, I'll look at that proposal and I'll see that it's all about us, right? It's about our product, our capabilities, why we're great. And that's all very important. It builds credibility, and the customer needs to understand those things. But another part of that proposal, that proposing and selling process, needs to be justifying. We'll tell our sales professionals, hey, go to the C-suite and justify that purchase to the CFO. And then we just send them on their way. Now, what I do is, or we give them too much information. We say, go look at the annual report, or go through their financials, or look at all these different ratios, financial or business ratios, or that this industry, this customer is concerned with. We give them a load of information. We give them too much. So we either give them too much or too little. I give them a shortcut that they have to use. They can do more, but they have to use this shortcut. I tell them that they have to show a cash flow benefit to the CFO. As my slide here says, cash is king. Study by U.S. Bank, over 80% of business failures are due to poor cash flow management. That's a compelling fact for me. I don't give you a lot of facts in this presentation. I give you a lot of opinion. But that, to me, is a very compelling fact. So with that, I want them to get in a very basic discussion about cash flow. And I even footnote this, and I tell you, don't go back to your controller and say, this crazy guy on this presentation today gave this cash flow thing that looks too simple. They'll tell you it's not that simple. But for our sales professionals to at least begin to learn this discussion and to go to that C-suite and justify something to a CFO, this approach works, right? So on the cash in side, it's either more or faster, right? More cash in faster, that's a good thing. Couple ways to do that: increase sales, better billing, better AR processes. Another way to increase cash flow is on the cash outs. If we send less cash out and we do it slower, or at least do it in a more controlled manner, in a very controlled, processitized manner. Might have made up another word there. That's a better thing. That's good. And as listed here, there's business functions responsible for these processes: sales, billing, AR, purchasing, AP. Right? There's actual functions that they can work with to help justify the cash flow improvement to that CFO. Now, the last thing that I'll say about this, for my industry and probably for some of yours, these processes that are connected to cash flow are very information and data intensive. So that's why I focus our sales professionals to them. I give them the shortcut. I point them to processes that every company has, and I point them to processes that are very data and information intensive. Cash is king. All right, if we could move on to the next slide. This is my discovery number 5. It's the last one that I've got for you today. And again, I'm going to point you to a Keith Eads book. I don't work for Keith. I don't get paid. I know him. He writes good books. This one's called the consultative sale or consultative. He tells me it's consultative, so that's what we're going to go with. The consultative sale. I found that the graph at the top of this page is gold when it comes to understanding your customer's decision-making process. And what this graph shows us is that different factors have a different level of importance at different steps in the sales process. No surprise to you that cost is in there. Pretty important at the beginning, pretty important at the end, right? The customer's needs, our capabilities. No surprise that any of them are in there. But the thing I really want to point out and drive home with this page is that at the end of the sales process, risk is the most important determinant in the customer's decision-making process. I recently heard of a study that showed on average 6.8 people are involved in a B2B buying decision-making process. Major account, B2B, buying decision-making process, 6.8 people participate in the decision-making process. That's at least partially due to risk aversion. Right? My little tagline here is you can't wait until the end to worry about their worry. You cannot wait until halfway through the sales process to really get at the discussion of risk and understand your customer's perception of risk. You cannot wait to the end. It's most important at the end. It's of the least importance at the beginning of the decision-making process, the sales process. But that's where you have to strike up that conversation. Our sales professionals do not like to do this. It generally doesn't come naturally to them. It's generally not something that they want to go do. I have to point it out to them. Sometimes I have to point it out to them when they've already lost a sale to the dreaded no decision. Right? Hey, we're going through the pipeline. Where are you with this sale? I don't know. They went dark. Everything was going great for 2 months. I thought I had the sale, and all of a sudden, nothing. They went dark on me. I'm guessing some of you are nodding your heads that you've heard this once or twice or 1,000 times. I can be pretty sure at that point that my sales rep, my sales professional did not handle the discussion of risk from the very beginning, and they didn't handle it well. And the reason that that customer is not calling them back is that they had their internal discussions, which is going to happen no matter what. They're having their internal discussions, and they decided that our option has risks that they're not willing to take on. Could be operational risk around will it work, transitional risk on can we implement it, or financial risk. Will we get the value and hit the ROI? Second book, as I said, by Keith Eads, very good on this subject. It's where I take this chart, The Collaborative Sale. I highly recommend it. All right, that's it for my 9 accidental discoveries. I've got a closing slide for you, a couple thoughts that I'll give you in closing. You'll see on this page, I call it my selling Karens. My selling Karens. And for you hikers out there on the call, you know what that is. And for those of you that are not hikers, you can Google it. First one, be curious, be inquisitive. Ask when, how, who, but especially, and what I always preach to sales professionals that I work with, is ask why. The real secret to getting a sale is in the why. Why is the business process the way it is? Why do they do something the way they do? All right, next up, I used it in the presentation. Be a student. Build situational fluency. Third, have mentors. I gave you a couple examples where I really believe that our sales professionals need to ask for help. They need to have mentors. And then lastly, if you remember back to my slide about having something in common with your decision influencers and your decision makers, you have to do something. Be active. Please be active. And with that, I'll close. Thank you for your attention and for allowing me to share with you today. And I think we'll have a little time for questions. I'll do my best to answer if you have any.
Thank you, Jon. We really enjoyed your presentation. Before I go out and check the chat line of questions submitted, do we have any live questions? Again, it is *6 to unmute your line and go ahead with your questions. Or a reminder, you can also click anywhere on this last slide. Then you will see how to make a comment, so you can type your question if wished. So again, any live questions? Okay, Jon, we have received several questions throughout your presentation. Keep in mind you may have touched on these, but I'll ask them all anyway, just in case there's something you would like to add to or elaborate on. Since job descriptions, hiring, etc., are really more of an HR function, how is your team working with HR to ensure all bases are being covered?
Okay, so I gave you the warning up front. My approach on things is very obvious. I'll tell you that if you tell me this answer is very obvious, I'll agree with you. I'm going to be overly obvious. It's what I do. I do it. I find out who are the owners inside of HR for each of the things that they do in support of me. All right, in our structure, for example, I'll give you a few. I've got an HR generalist who it helps me with day-to-day decision making, who's a good strategic partner, who has a very good understanding of my organization, and who I've helped to develop that understanding of the organization. I have a recruiter that's aligned to me where I've done the same thing. Our training organization falls inside of our HR organization. Mike Nash that I plugged a bit ago. Mike and I speak weekly on training initiatives and so forth. I don't have a silver bullet for you other than I work with these folks. Sometimes I've seen in companies you don't even know who's aligned to you for these things. I'm lucky in Ricoh that we have very good cross-organizational relationships. It's easy for me to engage and to frankly ask them to let me co-own what we can do together, whether it's training, development, and so forth. So I apologize for the obvious answer, but it's all I've got for you.
Okay, thank you. Well, our next question, can you talk a little bit about how you put together an excellent job description? Let's put it this way. It's not something you want to try to do in one day, and it's something where you've got to be pretty prepared to bang head against wall, fists on table, and so forth. Most recently, the ones that I've worked with, I had a starting point. I had an existing job description, right? If you don't, I would go search online for formats and find one that you like. The key to our job description is two sections. One is the responsibilities and outcomes, right? In the job description, it's more responsibilities, the description of the responsibilities. But what I want to have for every one of those responsibilities is I want to have expected outcomes. Maybe they're touched on in the job description, but I want to have them internalized with me and documented with me. So if one of the responsibilities is development of net new accounts for a sales professional, right? That's very vague. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to make it more specific. I'm going to try to put in that development of net new accounts a little bit about our strategy and our tools, right? The development of net new account base utilizing X, Y, and Z tool set. And then I want to give a little bit about expected outcomes. Now, again,
outside of that job description, for my interviewing process, for my performance management process, and so forth, I want a lot of detail around the expected outcome for that responsibility. Right? We have that as in both our job description and in our assessment process. And then the second part of our job description that I rely on a lot is competencies. You can find dictionaries or lists of competencies online for whatever type of job you're looking for. What we try to do is keep it to 4 or 5 critical sales-related competencies with a definition around each that ties back to the responsibilities. Right? So the main thing I do is structure that, the main thing we do, I didn't come up with this, we structure that job description with those 2 main parts to tie together, and then in turn, we spend a lot of time really talking about whether that gets us the person that we really want. If someone comes in the job and follows that job description, are they going to be excellent? Are they going to be someone that kills it, someone that we love to work with?
Okay, thank you. Now, our next question, with Ricoh being an old company with legacy systems and tenured employees, how are you keeping it fresh within sales with what I assume is older and younger team members?
So I want to take a little care in answering this. Read it off to me one more time.
Okay. With Ricoh being an old company with legacy systems and tenured employees, how are you keeping it fresh within sales with what I assume is older and younger team members?
Okay, so a couple things. First, the age of the company is something that I'm proud of and would always present in a manner that I want others to share that. So to me, really, age of the company doesn't come into play on keeping things fresh. Keeping things fresh is my responsibility. I mean, I told you, for example, that it took a year for me to decide to do this presentation with Shelly. And one of the reasons I did it was to keep me fresh, right? And to have me test ideas and put them in front of other people and so forth. So I think that the keeping things fresh is first and foremost my responsibility, and that I have to live that, every day, and I do my best to do so. Now, having said that, I don't think that age ever needs to be a limiting or controlling factor in how fresh I can give things or how fresh I can make things. I may have dated myself early in the presentation with the movie reference in the one slide. So I may have already dated myself. So you may have looked at my LinkedIn profile and decided how old I am, or that slide might have dated me. But I don't guarantee you're right. I mean, to me, it's a mindset. I've seen people that are late in their careers and are the most creative and insightful and able to assimilate new ideas. And I've seen people very early in their careers that have no interest in doing that, are terrible at it. So I take, age of company and age of individuals right out of the discussion, and I get into responsibilities, mindset. I mentioned in my recruiting little checklist there, fun and excitement level and inquisitiveness. To me, those are not age-based items. I expect them of myself. I expect them of the people that work for me. I expect them of the people that I hire, no matter what their age is. And I don't want to know what anybody's age is. So I try to avoid that topic.
Okay, thank you.
Sandra, did I get it covered, Sandra? I know it's kind of multi-part.
I'll have to wait to see if they'll ping me to let me know if it was covered, and I'll come back to that.
All right.
So,
if I missed some part of that, circle back.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so our next question, how do you equate having this excellent job description to having equally as excellent new hires? How do you ensure they're aligned just because they may say they are?
Yeah, it's actually my approach and my philosophy on it is why I put the hey, it's just a sales process slide in there for you with the obstacle course. What I've found is that just because someone's a great interviewer or writes a terrific cover letter or is great at getting interviews, that they may be great at all those things. I agree. It is not going to make them a great sales professional. And sales is a complicated thing, and it's a very challenging career. And I mentioned the book Range earlier and the wicked world. I think it's a wonderful the description that he gives of a wicked world. I believe that our sales people operate in that wicked world every day, and they have to deal with it. So my best indicator is going to be how do they perform through that process that I set up for them. How do they prepare to do a presentation? How do they present themselves? How do they take coaching? How do they perform in front of a panel? How do they follow up? I mean, these are all sales process steps. That's the discovery that I'm, very basic discovery that I'm so proud of. It's a sales process. And what I see them do through that process is my best estimation of what I can expect them to do in the job. Now, certainly their resume matters. If they're an internal candidate, our information on them matters. Right? So I'm not saying don't pay attention to all those traditional sources. What I'm saying is that I've layered over top of that a sales process so I can see what they're like in that sales process.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, our last question, what kind of reaction did you most often get when you tell your new people to go justify and the like?
I don't know if there's a most often. There's, sales reps and professionals come in different, in different personalities, different ways that they react to things. I can give you a couple possibilities. One is they nod and smile and take off and go. And it's then up to me through my interaction with them, my monitoring of their activity, my sales calls that I do with them to really see whether they're doing it or not. Right? So one of the reactions I get is a smile and a nod, but that doesn't mean they actually do a great job of it. In fact, more often than not, they need help. The ones I worry about the most are the ones that smile and nod and go charging out the door. The other most common reaction I get is the exact opposite. I get a frown and I get a worried look and nothing. And I say, well, do you have a question? I mean, and it's basically they haven't connected everything. They haven't connected these ideas like business process improvement and understanding processes and discussion with the decision maker or influencer, and then the justification around something like expense reduction or cash management or better customer service results or faster cycle times. Right? Any of those can be something that we want to focus to when we go justify. I just picked cash as one for today. So what I've got to do is I've got to go through that process with them. I've got to take them from the function of the person they're calling on to the business process they're responsible to the metrics and the determinants of the success of that business process through to some type of improvement justification. And when they get good at that and they're interested in that and soak it up, that's when I know I've got a very good sales professional.
All right, Jon, I think we have covered everyone's questions. Do you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom you would like to share before we end our summit today?
I have no final. I really beat up the 9 points that I had for today, and I appreciate the questions, and I hope I covered them well for you. And again, I thank Shelly and Sandra for supporting me and having me on today. I support the group for listening and giving me the time and questions. Okay,
Jon. On behalf of all of the executives on the line, I would like to thank you for sharing such powerful ideas and key thoughts with us today. Your involvement and dedication to our profession sets a high benchmark for others to follow. For all of the participants on today's call, thank you for your continued membership and insightful questions for today's speaker. The meeting is now officially concluded. Jon, thank you so much again, and everyone have a great day.